Good afternoon. We begin with a traffic tragedy in the Junction. A woman has died after being struck by a vehicle that went out of control last night.
She was just walking in the neighborhood at the time when it happened. CTV's Beth McDonnell joins us live from the scene this hour. What have you learned at this point, Beth?
Well, Michelle, Nathan, there is a memorial growing here at the corner. Police are calling this a horrible situation and a tragedy. From what we understand so far, 2 cars crashed in the intersection, hitting a man and a woman who were simply just on the sidewalk. At the corner where the woman lost her life, there are flowers. Last night, shortly after 8, she was one of 2 struck by a vehicle at Pacific Avenue and Annette Avenue in the Junction.
It was reported that 2 vehicles were involved in a collision, and then one of the vehicles struck 2 pedestrians on the sidewalk, a male and a female.
Toronto police say the man was taken to hospital with non-life-threatening injuries, but the woman did not survive.
And CPR was given by bystanders and emergency personnel. The female pedestrian was unfortunately succumbed to her injuries and was pronounced deceased at the scene.
Police say the blue car was traveling northbound and the gray car was traveling westbound when the crash took place. The darkness and speed appearing to be factors, officers say, but everything is still being investigated. People in the neighborhood are stopping by the intersection to reflect.
It's scary because it's just need to be very, very careful now everywhere. Because every second, someone in car, everywhere, in sidewalk, in line for bike, everywhere, can hit you.
It's one of those things for the pedestrians, it's completely unavoidable. So it's a tragic incident, and it could happen to anyone, unfortunately, walking along the sidewalk.
Police say both drivers remained on scene. To give you a sense of the force of this crash, you're looking at a bike lock that's completely bent over along with debris. Police say both drivers in the crash did not require medical attention. Reporting live, I'm Beth McDonnell. Now back to Michelle and Nathan.
Thank you, Beth. Still to come this hour, the Conservatives are putting forward their non-confidence motion in a bid to topple the Liberal government. We'll have that story this half hour.
But first, heavy rain is expected later today. We had showers so far and fog. That was the story this morning. But up to 50 millimeters of rain could fall in some areas, prompting a rainfall warning. Jessica Smith is here with a look at the current conditions. We already got quite a bit of rain yesterday and more today.
And we're looking at this system kind of getting a little bit of extra oomph from a tropical storm that is sitting south of the border, or a cyclone, I should say. So as we kind of make our way throughout the day today, that won't be the main driving factor, but that is adding to it. We're seeing the shower activity continue as we head throughout the day today, off and on in waves, and it will become heavier through the late afternoon, early evening, so just in time for the commute for a lot of people. We are under that rainfall warning here in the city of Toronto and across much of the GTA. The rest of southern Ontario under a special weather statement, both for rain. We could see up to 50 millimeters from this afternoon right through to our Wednesday morning, so keep that in mind. Localized flooding definitely possible. Temperature-wise, we're sitting in the upper teens, so it is a little cooler, but we're still contending with a bit of a humidex, so it still feels relatively mild out there. We will see a little more rain as we head into the afternoon, and then again it picks up as we head in towards this evening. Coming up, I'll have a full look at your long-range forecast. Right now, it's back to Michelle.
Thank you, Jessica. Next to an update on a potential roadblock to a key part of Toronto's plan to battle gridlock. At one point, it seemed the province would not allow the city to expand the use of automated enforcement, but the province may be softening its tone. The city was counting on cameras to catch drivers plugging up our intersections.
The Transportation Minister's office indicated the province may not be on board, but then the Premier was asked about it this morning. CTV's Natalie Johnson is continuing her congestion coverage. Natalie.
Well, Nathan, just when everyone here at City Hall was getting worked up about the prospect of the province overriding one of the key parts of the congestion plan, the Premier now says he will listen to what the city has to say.
In a bid to crack down on drivers who contribute to congestion by blocking the flow of traffic, the city wants to add more automated enforcement cameras to send steep fines to drivers. The move would, however, need provincial permission to make that plan permanent down the road, but Queen's Park will need some convincing. The Transportation Minister's office telling CTV News, quote, "At this time, we are not looking at expanding the use of automated enforcement beyond what is currently prescribed in the Highway Traffic Act." A softer tone, though, from the Premier this morning.
We're always open, and my minister and myself will sit down with the mayor and let's hear her out. And it's not in the plans, but let's sit down and at least listen to her.
The city does not need provincial permission to run a pilot project on the cameras. The mayor's office stressing that there has not yet been an official ask of the province, and any specific requests would come down the road. Writing in a statement, quote, Mayor Chow is serious about enforcement for those that continue to block the box and is optimistic the province will get on board after the city's pilot is complete. It comes days after it was revealed that Queen's Park is considering limiting cities' abilities to put bike lanes wherever they want.
If literally everything is either going to be second-guessed or prescribed by Doug Ford, then why doesn't he just become mayor? Like, my beef with Doug Ford is that he doesn't know what job he's got. And he doesn't need to like everything that Toronto Council does. I mean, even Toronto Council has differences of opinion about all these things. That's where that local democratic debate should happen.
As Toronto looks to approve its congestion strategy, the question is whether the province has plans of its own.
We'll be speaking to Mayor Olivia Chow on this later this hour, and we'll bring you the latest on the back and forth over who is controlling the congestion plan tonight at 6. Reporting live at City Hall, I'm Natalie Johnson. Nathan, over to you.
Thank you, Natalie. And staying at City Hall, the city's come up with a plan to fix the botched rollout of the vacant home tax.
It's aimed at avoiding the kind of confusion that we saw last year. CTV's Rahim Ladani is live at City Hall this afternoon to join us now with the latest on the situation. Rahim.
Michelle and Nathan, it was earlier this year when over 100,000 Toronto homeowners were mistakenly billed by the City of Toronto, telling them to pay up for the 2023 vacant home tax. Now, the city admits the rollout was absolutely chaotic, and so today a new plan is being presented to not scrap the program, but to change how it is to navigate. One of the major hurdles last year was a lack of communication, and so this year the city's chief financial officer is making a number of recommendations, including sending every homeowner 2 notices in the mail, 2 emails, and making robocalls as needed. There would also be no late fees for people who don't file the vacant home tax on time. In addition, all of the deadlines would be extended to give people leeway to file disputes, and pay if they get a bill. Also, you'll now be able to file online, in person, over the phone, through 311, and even by paper. All of these changes would increase the cost of running the program to $5.8 million. That's more than $2.5 million compared to last year.
We'll be very clear in our communications going forward that if you have a property, residential property, that is not occupied by yourself, not occupied by a tenant, not occupied by a family member, and it is not your primary residence.
So what we also heard was it was hard to tell, where you were in the process of declaration. So many started but did not complete. So we have introduced a progress tracker along the top that will indicate where anybody is throughout the declaration process to make sure that there is completion.
Another thing to keep in mind is that the actual vacant home tax is also increasing this year from 1% to 3%. The city estimates that's going to generate $105 million next year. So all of these recommendations are now going to be considered by the executive committee next week, while homeowners can start filing their vacant home tax declaration beginning November 1st. Reporting live, I'm Rahim Ladani. Nathan, I'll send it back to you.
Thank you, Rahim. As expected, Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre introduced a non-confidence motion against the Liberal government this morning.
Everything costs more, with 2 million people lined up at food banks because they cannot afford food. This is a record-smashing number. 1 in 10 Torontonians now eat at a food bank every single month. Housing costs have doubled, so that 2/3 of young people believe they will never be able to afford a home. That has never happened in Canadian history.
Poilievre asked other members of Parliament to support the motion tomorrow, but both the NDP and the Bloc Québécois have said they will vote no. That all but eliminates the possibility of a snap election this week. The Conservatives have another chance to introduce a non-confidence motion on Thursday. And CTV's Colton Prale's following this story and joins us now live. Colton, why is Poilievre forcing a non-confidence vote when he knows it's not going to be successful?
And Nathan, as much as this is an attack on government, really, this is an opportunity for a broadside attack on the NDP and the Bloc Québécois. And you saw it today when he stood up in the House of Commons. Yes, he took square aim at the Liberal government and the many issues he takes with their policies and their governance over the year. But he also, in his French speech, took specific aim at the Bloc Québécois and their and the way they've supported the carbon tax. And in his English speech, he took aim at the NDP as well and their support for a single-payer pharmacare system. And he says that would take away privatized pharmacare from unions and from workers who have worked so hard for those types of deals. He is using this not just as an opportunity to attack the Liberals, but really as an opportunity to continue to tie the NDP and the Bloc Québécois to Justin Trudeau and to the Liberal government. And you can see that in the way that this motion is framed. Previous non-confidence motions that he has put forward, including during the supply and confidence agreement when he knew they wouldn't pass, referred specifically to things that he was upset about with government, be it a carbon tax, be it food prices, be it inflation. This motion is very clear, it's very short, concise, and simple, and it just reads that the House has no confidence in the Prime Minister and the government. And so by forcing opposition members to vote in favor of that, they implicitly suggest that they do have confidence in the government and in Trudeau. And so that's wonderful political ammunition if you're a conservative strategist or leader trying to continue to tie the NDP, who is hoping to break away from Trudeau and the Liberals, and keep those two down in the polls, about 20 points smashed together far below you. That's half the political think. The other part that's important to recognize here, and we heard it again from Poilievre, is he talked about how the NDP were forcing Canadians to wait for an election, to wait while housing prices increased, to wait while opioid overdose deaths continued. And he had a few other examples along that. Right now, polling shows almost half of Canadians want that election. A third or so don't, according to Leger earlier this month. And so he is positioning himself and his party not only as the only option that isn't the Liberals, but is the only party that's trying to bring change about. And so between those two different political strategies, he's really differentiating the Conservatives from every other party in Parliament, and that has a massive impact. We're seeing it in the polls, but that's also really important in cities like Toronto, in Vancouver, in Montreal. New polling today shows that the Liberals have dropped almost 20% in Metro Vancouver and Metro Montreal, and about 10% in Toronto's core and its suburbs. That's huge for the Conservatives. If they can start to get into those urban ridings that they were struggling with before, that opens up so many more seats from them. And one way to do that is to group all of your opponents together and say they're all the same. We're the only choice you have.
So if there won't be a snap election, can we expect more non-confidence votes in the future?
We certainly can. There are 7 days where the opposition parties get a chance to decide the agenda of the House of Commons, 1 for the NDP, 1 for the Bloc Québécois, 5 for the official opposition. The Liberal government decides when those days happen. So as you mentioned earlier, one of them happened today, another one is happening Thursday. But that means there are 3 days between now and the end of session in December where the Conservatives get to set what the agenda for the House of Commons will be the next day. And that's something where they have said already, even before this session started, they plan to bring as many confidence votes forward as they can. So expect to see more of this. What'll be interesting, though, especially as we get later on, if they do come deeper into this session of Parliament, is will there be a political issue that comes up that's divisive enough that the NDP or Bloc Québécois will feel like they have to pull their support from the Liberals? That's going to be what to watch for.
All right, CTV's Colton Prail on the non-confidence vote. Thank you.
Anytime.
Joe Biden has made what will likely be his last major appearance on the world stage. The U.S. president addressed the opening of the United Nations General Assembly this morning. Biden spoke about the conflict in the Middle East.
Full-scale war is not in anyone's interest. Even if the situation has escalated, a diplomatic solution is still possible. In fact, it remains the only path to lasting security to allow the residents from both countries to return to their homes and the border safely. And that's what we're working tirelessly to achieve.
Biden also highlighted the need for the U.S. and Western allies to support Ukraine. He insisted America must not retreat from the world. It was Biden's final address as U.S. president to the General Assembly.
Prime Minister Trudeau is among the world leaders at the opening of the UN General Assembly. He won't be speaking, but will meet with Ukraine's president and the president of the European Commission. While in New York, the PM was a guest on The Late Show with Stephen Colbert last night.
We come up to you guys to get cheaper drugs.
Yeah,
we come over the border for cheaper drugs. You guys okay with that?
We're happy to try and help you out, but it'd be really easier if you guys had universal health care.
There was some bantering and jokes about bacon and Canadians saying sorry a lot. But Trudeau also said it's a really tough time in Canada, with people having trouble paying for groceries, rent, and gas.
A protest is expected today by parents whose children ended up being drawn into a pro-Palestinian protest.
The incident happened last week, and Premier Ford is weighing in today, saying he wants to get to the bottom of what happened. CTV's Queen's Park Bureau Chief Siobhan Morris joins us now from Port Colborne, where she asked the Premier about the issue today.
We definitely heard a much softer tone from the Premier today, but he maintains that what happened last week at this demonstration was not right. Parents say that they felt misled by what they heard from teachers. They thought their kids were only going to be observing this protest that was focused on the mercury poisoning in the far northern community of Grassy Narrows. But instead, their children were right in the mix of things in that demonstration. Some felt singled out by the use of language like settlers, and there was a pro-Palestinian chant used as well. I asked the Premier what accountability looks like to him in this moment, and he says he has asked his Minister of Education to investigate.
Well, you know, I had a conversation with the Minister of Education, Minister Dunlop, yesterday, and I've asked her to investigate the situation. Folks, we can't have our kids going to any protest. It doesn't matter what type of protest it is. There should be in school learning math and arithmetic, spelling, and geography, history. That's what we need to do. We can't be dragging them out of school and going to protests. It just doesn't cut it. And I think every parent believes in that. They should be in school learning. So we'll find out. We'll get down to the bottom of it.
Again, all of this comes ahead of that planned demonstration outside TDSB headquarters tonight. Reporting live from Port Colborne, I'm Siobhan Morris. Michelle, back to you.
Thank you, Siobhan. Meantime, the Premier is under fire for separate off-the-cuff comments about people living in encampments in Ontario. Doug Ford was in Kovrig yesterday afternoon for an infrastructure funding announcement. It's a town where there's a controversial encampment not far from where the Premier was speaking. Ford was asked what his government's investment plan to build homes will do to help a lengthy wait list for affordable housing. And the Premier had this to say.
Do you know what the best way to get people be able to get out of the encampments, get out of homeless? Get an application and drop it off one of these companies and start working. You need to start working if you're healthy. Bottom line, if you're unhealthy, I'll take care of you the rest of my life. Your life will take care of you. But if you're healthy, get off your ASS and start working like everyone else is.
Doug Ford just had one of his biggest ASS moments. People are in encampments and they are homeless because rents have skyrocketed by 83% since he took power. It's because he's gutting programs like ODSP and Ontario Works. It's because he's allowed the cost of living to spiral out of control. And it's because he has underfunded shelters that are now all over capacity.
The NDP called those comments heartless and out of touch. And the people who the Premier says the province is taking care of, those on disability supports, have taken issue with his words, saying the help they get isn't enough for basic needs.
In the Middle East, Lebanese health authorities have raised the death toll from 2 days of Israeli airstrikes targeting Hezbollah militants to 558. Israel attacked southern Lebanon with airstrikes today after launching hundreds of strikes in the south and eastern parts of the country yesterday. Thousands of people fled the south in the biggest exodus since the 2006 Israel-Hezbollah war. The Israeli military says Hezbollah launched about 100 projectiles toward Israel today. In Gaza, Israeli strikes killed at least 24 people.
Let's bring in CTV's Scott Hurst, who is following this story closely. He joins us live now. Scott, what is the latest from Lebanon today?
Michelle, this is now the deadliest barrage between Israel and Hezbollah in nearly 20 years. They've been exchanging fire since the beginning of the Israel-Hamas war in Gaza, of course, when Israel was attacked by Hamas. But now this has escalated significantly over the past couple of days. You mentioned the death toll now exceeds 550, according to Lebanese health authorities, and that includes close to 50 children and about 100 women. As I mentioned, that's according to the Lebanese health authorities. Israeli Israeli officials say in the strikes they've been targeting Hezbollah leaders and also weapons operations. And the Israeli officials say they're ramping up pressure on Hezbollah to force them to stop firing rockets into northern Israel. Meanwhile, this bombardment is pushing thousands of Lebanese to flee the southern region in search of safety. And as the fighting intensifies, the number of evacuees is expected to rise as well. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu saying this to the people of Lebanon in a video on social media, saying Israel's war is not with you, it is with Hezbollah. In the meantime, Hezbollah, as you mentioned, has also been firing rockets into Israeli territory, Michelle.
Scott, what about Canadians in Lebanon? What is the guidance from the government? Is there talk of an airlift?
Michelle, there are a lot of Canadians in Lebanon, some 20,000 registered with the Canadian government at this time. There isn't a talk of an airlift. There is not talk at this time about an evacuation operation for Canadians in Lebanon. The message we're getting from Foreign Affairs Minister Mélanie Joly for Canadians is to not travel to Lebanon at the moment, of course, because of the deteriorating security situation, but also for those some 20,000 Canadians to get out while they still can get out, while there are still commercial operations. As mentioned, according to Global Affairs Canada, there are currently 20,323 Canadians registered in Lebanon, saying at this time there are no reports of any Canadians injured in the recent barrage of rockets, but Canadians there requiring emergency assistance should still contact the embassy in Lebanon and get consular support. So that is the message right now from Canadian officials about Canadians in Lebanon, as, of course, there is a significant fear about a rising tension and an escalation in this ongoing war between Israel and Hezbollah in Lebanon.
CTV's Scott Hurst live for us in the CTV National Newsroom. Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle.
A woman arrested after a brazen auto theft in Peel region is now facing more charges in Toronto. The woman was arrested after a man selling a Porsche SUV was run over while trying to steal the vehicle during a prearranged meeting in his driveway. The entire incident was caught on home security cameras. 18-year-old Sarah Bradshaw, Badshaw, was charged with 4 offenses, including theft of a motor vehicle and dangerous operation causing bodily harm. Toronto police have now charged Badshaw with 3 more charges, including theft of a motor vehicle. Police allege the charges come after 2 incidents in which someone tried to steal a vehicle. Now to the murder case involving a Toronto rapper that fell apart just as it was about to go to trial.
The rapper known as Top 5 was freed yesterday after spending 3 years in jail on a charge of first-degree murder in the shooting death of a 20-year-old student. CTV's John Woodward has the details.
You freed me! Yo, I'm home!
That's Hassan Ali, known as rapper Top 5, leaving court a free man for the first time in more than 3 years.
Hope they find whoever did that. I'm an innocent man, you know what I mean?
Ali was wanted in 2021 for the shooting of 20-year-old college student Hashim Omar Hashi, gunned down in what appeared to be a case of mistaken identity. Ali accused of being a member of the Go Get 'Em gang, the third man in this vehicle. The alleged motive, revenge for the killing of Ali's brother Saeed Ali, known as Foolish, in 2017. But Ali didn't surrender. He went underground, taunting police and proclaiming his innocence on social media live streams.
Like, I ain't do shit. Everybody know I ain't do shit, but save that for God.
After he was arrested in Los Angeles, he filmed part of a rap video behind bars. Among the evidence, authorities were expecting to use a rap lyric.
I was 18 when I bought a gun, 22 when I shot your son.
Prosecutors conceded there was no chance of convicting Hassan Ali after a judge ruled his rap videos and lyrics were inadmissible. Ali, sitting in court, couldn't believe it, saying, "I get to go, and then is this a joke?" as his family started crying.
I think the evidence against Hassan was entirely circumstantial.
Ali claimed the Go Get 'Em gang is just a record label and denied those lyrics had anything to do with Hashi's murder.
It's important for all drillers to portray themselves as the biggest, baddest gangsters on the planet. That's what sells.
Hassan, are you worried about paying for dairy?
No, I'm worried about making $1 million tonight.
Online, he thanked Toronto rapper Drake for paying his legal fees that helped Top 5 beat a rap. He says he's going back to making music. John Woodward, CTV News.
A Toronto police officer is on trial in Brampton, accused of assaulting a young man while off duty 3 years ago. The 19-year-old later died in hospital. CTV's John Musselman has the details.
Family and friends of 19-year-old Chad Facey filled a Brampton courtroom for the start of the criminal trial of Toronto police officer Calvin Aw. In an agreed statement of facts, Constable Aw was off-duty. He and another off-duty police officer agreed to meet up with Facey in Brampton to buy an Apple Watch he posted online. Aw's partner handed over $400, but the watch turned out to be fake. According to tribunal documents, Facey was chased and taken to the ground. Shortly after, Facey was taken to Brampton Civic Hospital, where he later died. His sister and his best friend took the stand. Both described seeing Facey after his meeting with the off-duty cops. They told the court Facey was short of breath and had a large bump on his head. But under cross-examination, defense lawyer Peter Browdy suggested Facey and his friend knew this was a rip-off right from the start. Facey's friend testified he was limping and he was out of breath. He had a knot on his head. Peter Browdy, I'm going to suggest that you knew Chad was going to sell a fake Apple Watch, and he has done it before on previous occasions. The friend, quote, no. Aw faces a charge of assault causing bodily harm. He was originally facing charges of manslaughter and aggravated assault. According to the agreed statement of facts, the Crown is not in a position to allege that Facey's death was caused by an interaction with Aw. Aw has pleaded not guilty. The trial by judge alone continues tomorrow. John Musselman, CTV News in Brampton.
We have an unsettled day ahead of us as a system sits over, set to bring some pretty substantial rain as we head into our afternoon and early evening. Temperature-wise, a noticeable difference as well. We're sitting a little cooler heading into the afternoon. That 20, though still feeling like 25, will kind of bring us into a more humid afternoon than maybe some would like with this rain, and the winds will be quite gusty. Coming up, I'll have a full look at your long-range forecast, and we'll break down how long this soggy weather is sticking around.
All right, to the forecast. It is cloudy, but it's warm. However, there's rain, and there's also a concern about the amount we might be getting.
I was telling the kids this morning, recess might be inside. What are you seeing in terms of the timing?
It comes in a few waves. We are watching for drizzle kind of off and on throughout the day. The heavier rain is through this afternoon and overnight. So it will impact the commute, I'm sure, for a lot of people. And even into the day tomorrow, because the heavy rain does happen overnight, there could be some localized flooding. It's always a good idea to give yourself that extra time on the roads. Weather is brought to you by the Preser Law Firm. Injury lawyers, you don't pay unless they win. But it was a soggy start to the day. If you were commuting early on, it was maybe a challenge. These folks out in Oshawa definitely had the right idea, bringing the umbrella. Whether you're commuting by car or taking transit, it is a challenging one, so prepare yourselves accordingly. This system really is going to sit with us over the next couple of days, so keep that in the back of your mind just to have the rain gear with you. You might not need it the entire day because we do get breaks from the rain, but we are not going to see that brilliant sunshine return until later on in the week. Temperature-wise, it is noticeably cooler, but we are still holding on to a decent humidex value as we head throughout the afternoon. We'll see a daytime high right around 20. The normal is 19. So again, we're not far from where we should be, but you factor in that humidex, and it feels closer to 25, and almost everybody feeling that little bit of humidity as we head into our late afternoon. Tonight, we're dropping down to 18, so we really don't lose any of that warmth. We should be sitting at 10. Everybody holding on to a decent amount of heat. Bancroft should be at 5, and they'll sit at 13. We're watching the system make its way through, also kind of driving up some moisture from a cyclone system that's making its way up the Gulf of Mexico. For us, we don't see the full impacts of that, but it is driving a little extra moisture towards us. We are under that rainfall warning that's in the green for the city of Toronto and a good portion of the GTA. The yellow is a special weather statement. Everybody looking at 30 to maybe 50 millimeters, so a significant amount of rain in a short period of time this afternoon, overnight, and to start the day tomorrow. Again, this line of showers goes along this warm front, and then we're going to see it kind of sit and park itself as we head throughout the second half of our day today and into the day tomorrow. Kind of timing it all out. We get a little break into the early afternoon, so maybe for school pickup for some, it won't be so bad if you're in the downtown core, but then we're just watching for waves of rain until we get to about 7 p.m. The rain doesn't necessarily completely stop in southern Ontario, but the GTA gets a bit of a break. And then overnight, again, we're watching for those thunderstorms. That's the yellows, the oranges, the reds you see there. So it could be quite heavy at that time. So it might wake you up, but it's also going to drop a significant amount of rain. Still watching for some spotty showers early on in our Wednesday. And then we see some sunny breaks throughout the day as the system starts to depart and push its way a little bit further east. We don't see the brilliant sunshine return until we get in towards kind of the end of the week. So if you have outdoor plans, better to kind of schedule them for maybe later on this week. Temperature-wise, although we are closer to seasonal today, it still feels significantly warmer than it should. A more southerly flow to the winds will help that, but it won't necessarily do too much in a positive way because we're looking at those gusts a little closer to 40. So in addition to the rain, we have the wind. As we head in towards our Wednesday, the bulk of the system will start to push out late morning, and then we will see some sunny breaks as we head into our afternoon, but it will be humid, that 24 feeling into the 30s. We start to see a little more sunshine return to the forecast heading in towards the end of the week. Not a brilliantly sunny kind of end to our week, but at least temperature-wise, we're holding on a little bit closer to seasonal. And as we head in towards the end of the weekend, the chance of maybe some passing showers, but overall, at least after we get through today and at least the start of the day tomorrow, it is relatively dry. Michelle, I'll send things back over to you.
Thank you, Jess. The TTC board is meeting today, and one of the items on the agenda is whether riders will continue to have access to free Wi-Fi at subway stations.
We have to look at, the whole picture in terms of, if we're investing $17 million in Wi-Fi, that means we're not investing $17 million in something else. So we got to look at things holistically. And again, I'm sure the board will have a lot to say on that, and we will have a lot more to say on that at the press conference.
Today, Councillor Josh Matlow is introducing a motion asking the TTC to continue offering the Wi-Fi while it is studied further. The plan right now is to get rid of the service at the end of the year. The Transit Commission says demand for Wi-Fi has decreased by 65% since it was introduced. There are also reliability, security, and cost concerns.
Still to come, 3 years after being released from detention in China, Michael Kovrig is telling his story in his own words. That's after the break. Cineplex has been ordered to pay a record $38.9 million fine. The competition tribunal found the theater owner guilty of deceptive marketing practices. In May, the Competition Bureau brought a case accusing Cineplex of deceiving theatergoers by not immediately presenting them with the full price of a movie ticket when purchasing seats online. Cineplex denied the accusation, saying moviegoers are promptly told about fees they may face. The $38.9 million fine is equivalent to the amount Cineplex collected from consumers through a $1.50 online booking fee between June 2022 and December 2023. Michael Kovrig says Canada may have underestimated the ruthlessness of the regime in China. The comments came in an interview with CTV News chief news anchor and senior editor Omar Sachedina.
Kovrig was detained by China for more than 3 years in apparent retaliation for Canada's arrest of Huawei executive Meng Wanzhou in 2018. And 3 years after his release, he's telling his own story in his own words.
They grabbed me and, in front of my pregnant girlfriend, dragged me into a black SUV, stuffed me into the back seat, put a set of handcuffs on me, blindfolded me, and drove off into the night. And you can imagine what that was like for her, right? She doesn't know if she's, it's an abrupt shock while she's pregnant, and she doesn't know if she's going to see me ever again.
A terrifying 45-minute journey.
They drove me to some secret location in South Beijing and sat me in an interrogation chair and told me that I was under suspicion of harming the national security of China. And you're locked into a chair, which with a kind of board over the front of it, over your legs, that's locked, so you can't get out of the chair.
He was in solitary for 5 months, no daylight, and his food rations cut, he says, if he didn't cooperate.
It's psychologically exceedingly difficult to deal with.
And how do you even begin to stay mentally strong in that state?
I told myself sort of really early on that they're never going to see me cry. They're not going to see me being weak, because if they do, they'll exploit that.
Outside the walls of detention, a diplomatic battle was intensifying between Canada and China. Kovrig unaware the extent to which he was being used as a human bargaining chip. Having had the benefit of some perspective now, do you feel like Canada did everything it could to free you in a timely manner?
I think once the crisis started, there was no lack of effort by the Canadian government's part. I think the challenge was, the biggest challenge was that they were unprepared for it, that they underestimated the Chinese Communist Party and they underestimated its ruthlessness, and its capacity to use any tactic like that. The panda mask has fallen off. We can see the dragon underneath.
A lesson, he says, became clearer for him while he was in detention, where the possibility of seeing his daughter, now 5 years old, gave him the strength to push forward.
We called her Clara, after my grandmother, but also because sitting in a situation like that, trapped in a cell in darkness, I wanted to always remind myself that we need to try to see clearly.
Focusing on Clara's future, helping Kovrig manage a painful past.
And we have much more of Omar's interview with Michael Kovrig online. Head to ctvnews.ca.
The surviving co-founder of OceanGate, the company behind the doomed Titan submersible, testified yesterday at a hearing investigating last year's underwater implosion.
This shouldn't have happened. 5 people should not have lost their lives. 4 families should not be mourning their loved ones.
Guillermo Sonlin denied claims that the company put money over science and said his co-founder, Stockton Rush, convinced him they could develop and build their own subs. A catastrophic implosion killed Rush and 4 others last summer. Sonlin left the company a decade before that deadly dive. He says he hopes the tragedy yields renewed interest in exploration.
2 Russian cosmonauts and an American astronaut are back on Earth after a Soyuz capsule traveling from the International Space Station landed in Kazakhstan. The capsule successfully touched down Monday, about 3.5 hours after undocking from the ISS. The 2 Russians are back on Earth after a record 374 days aboard the space station. American astronaut Tracy Dyson was up in space for 6 months. Still to come on CTV News at noon, the Cineplex penalty we've told you about is taking a toll on the company's share price. We'll have more coming up in business.
Get Toronto's top stories, breaking news alerts, and watch live. Download the CTV News app.
Canadian and U.S. shares hit record highs today as China's plan to reboot its economy lifted stock markets around the world.
Andrew Bell of BNN Bloomberg brings us the latest in business.
Hello there. Here are your business headlines. China plans new stimulus measures to rejuvenate an ailing economy. The move lifted stocks in Asia and Europe and pushed commodity prices higher. Beijing's plans include cutting mortgage rates and reducing the down payment required for second homes. Canadian and U.S. stocks rose, leaving them on course for another record high close. U.S.-listed Chinese stocks such as Alibaba and JD.com were higher. Lithium, iron ore and copper stocks moved up in Toronto on hopes the move by the regime in Beijing will lift demand for metals. Tech Resources gained 4%. First Quantum Minerals was up 7%. And gold stocks were also higher as bullion traded at new record highs above $2,654 US an ounce. And finally, Cineplex shares slipped 3%. The movie theater chain was ordered to pay a penalty of almost $39 million by the Competition Tribunal, which found that the company misled consumers over advertised ticket prices by adding a $1.50 online booking fee. The company plans to appeal. That's the latest in business. I'm Andrew Bell of BNN Bloomberg.
To sports, the Blue Jays began their final homestand last night, taking on the Boston Red Sox.
Vaughn Grissom, the batter, hits a fly ball to left field. Lucas setting up. He'll make the catch. Abreu on his way home, and he will score.
The Red Sox opened the scoring in the second inning and built on their lead from there. They went on to win the game 4-1. The teams meet again tomorrow night.
Toronto Raptors are set to retire Vince Carter's jersey this season, a first for the franchise. Sources tell TSN a ceremony will be held prior to a game on November 2nd against the Sacramento Kings with his number 15 jersey set to hang from the rafters. Carter spent 7 seasons with the Raptors, winning Rookie of the Year, and was a 6-time All-Star. Carter also led the Raptors to their first ever playoff appearance in 2000.
As far as jersey retirements go, this is actually pretty unique in that we know there's a long and complicated history between the player and the franchise, the fan base, and even internally, I can tell you that there was a bit of a split.
Carter is the only player in NBA history to appear in 22 seasons and will be inducted into the Basketball Hall of Fame next month.
A small investment is about to pay off in a big way for Newfoundland and Labrador. The province sponsored a lower league soccer team in England that is playing a powerhouse today. CTV's Garrett Barry explains.
An opportunity that legends are made of.
It's like winning the lottery, I think.
Barrow AFC, which normally plays in front of 4,000 fans in England's 4th division, will next play for 40,000 when they take the pitch at Stamford Bridge against Giants Chelsea on Tuesday. But it's not just players and coaches that are eagerly preparing. Newfoundland officials are too.
I believe there's a chanting section and a non-chanting section. I think I'm in the non-chanting section, I think.
Because in front of all those fans and more watching on TV, Barrow will wear a Newfoundland and Labrador logo, part of a controversial partnership deal made this summer.
It's going to be pretty prominent, I can tell you that. Newfoundland and Labrador are getting their money's worth out of that one for sure.
The provincial government bought a patch on the front of Barrow's jersey, spending $171,000 on the small soccer club for 2 years of promotion. The logo on the jersey is for a website promoting immigration to the province.
We are targeting people who feel like they might not fit in the UK anymore, and we want to raise our hand and say, come to Newfoundland and Labrador, and we need to be there in front of them when they're making that decision.
Earlier this year, Barrow players crossed the pond and met with young counterparts in Newfoundland. And this downtown St. John's bar is getting ready to show Tuesday's showdown.
It'll be interesting. If they hold their own, that's all they got to do.
It's all part of the magic of European football. Small teams can make Cinderella runs and take on the sport's biggest clubs.
You know, it's a night that you'll remember forever, whatever the result. If they do manage to slay the giant, as it were, you know, that becomes the stuff of legend.
All the more reason for Newfoundland and Labrador to cheer for its adopted team. A memorable highlight might put this Newfoundland and Labrador jersey into the history books. Garrett Barry, CTV News, St. John's.
Coming up, a boy who captured our collective exasperation with shoveling so perfectly and then went viral for it has now caught Hollywood's attention. We have an update after the break.
You may remember this young man from right here on CTV News. He became a viral sensation for his reaction to the strenuous work of shoveling out of a snowstorm more than 2 years ago.
How could we forget? Turns out Hollywood also took notice. CTV's Scott Lightfoot has this update.
He's a little older now, but you might remember then 9-year-old Carter Trizzolo from a chance appearance right here on CTV News back in January of 2022.
Tiring.
Trizzolo's exhausted shoveling after a major snowstorm made him a viral sensation. The clip of his precipitation exasperation was viewed millions of times online.
My entire family is like, there's Mr. Famous everywhere I went for the next 7 months.
I wish you were here. I want to hug you so hard. You're so cute.
It even led to him doing interviews around the globe. It was that viral moment that made Trizzolo, now 11, realize he may just have a future in front of the camera.
Agents were reaching out, and we talked, and I said, yeah, sure, let's try it.
2 years later, he's one of the stars of My Old Ass, a coming-of-age movie with a twist. As part of this film, Trizzolo got to attend film festivals.
I went to Sundance, I think it was last year.
Did you even know what Sundance was?
No. I had no idea what it was.
That's where the movie's director admitted his viral moment wasn't what landed him the role.
The snow shoveling kid who was like complaining in the news about wishing he was at school on a snow day, which I didn't know until after I cast him, but full of personality.
Trizzolo plans to take that personality as far as it can go as an actor.
I want to try a horror film. I don't want to watch it, but I just want to try it because just see the process of it.
And the star turn hasn't gone to his head.
But you don't have a bunch of Hollywood assistants that are going to come help you shovel.
No. The only assistant I have is my mom. It's a good assistant.
He says when the snow falls this winter,
I am 100% definitely shoveling as soon as I see snow come out.
Because it might change your life again.
It might. It might. And yeah, I'm excited for winter.
Scott Lightfoot, CTV News.
That's the best story, isn't it?
We have to
Who
keep
would've
tabs
thought?
on Carter. I think it's so nice that he's still giving us interviews. He might be too big one day.
I know he's excited for winter and snow. I am not. But today we were dealing with precip. It's just not the cold stuff. We're looking at rain today. And the showers will be heavy at times throughout this afternoon and evening, prompting that rainfall warning. So give yourself extra time on the roads anytime we have active weather. Still watching for spotty showers this afternoon, but again, it increases later on today. And temperature-wise, it remains a little muggy. We're still under that rainfall warning, and in total, by the time we get to tomorrow morning, we could see up to 50 millimeters. 18 feeling like 24, so it's still got that bit of mugginess in the southerly flow to the wind that is quite gusty this afternoon. We do see the rains start to clear up late in the day Wednesday, and by Thursday, a little sunshine to help dry things out before we head into the weekend with some cloud cover, but fairly seasonal daytime highs.
All right, thank you, Jess. And that is CTV News at noon. Remember, you can get Toronto's breaking news all day long on CP24 and at our website, ctvnewstoronto.ca.
For Jessica Smith and everyone here at CTV News, have a pleasant afternoon. I'm Michelle Dubé.
And I'm Nathan Downer. Be sure to join us later for CTV News at 5 and 6.